I basically came to my manager and said, you need to promote me.
Is that an ask or a command? I love that.
It was almost a command, but I did ask. I said, I think you need to promote me. And he actually surprised me and said, yeah, I've been thinking about it for a while. And then at that point, I made the real ask is, well, stop thinking about it. Do it.
Beautiful. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dia Bondi Show, a big podcast for women with goals. And honestly, it's a big podcast for anyone with goals. If you've got goals, we want to help you ask for more and get it, and resource your dreams so you can reach those goals as absolutely fast as you possibly can. And I am here joined with my, what do I say, on-air bestie, Arthur Leon Adams III, a.k.a. Baby A. Hi, Baby A.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, on-air bestie. I actually was just listening back to one of the episodes where that term was coined. I think we also said on-air bae.
That's right. Right. It's been so long, I feel like, since it's actually been since our launch party, episode 10, that we've gotten on a call together.
Yeah, we were doing a bunch of episodes all really quickly to have them sort of backloaded for the launch of the podcast. And then once that happened, we are now getting into a cadence of recording them much more sporadically.
Right. Yeah. We're having a cadence of being sporadic. That sounds totally on brand for me.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but it's nice to see you and hear you.
Yeah, nice to see you too. What's been going on?
I want to say so much and so little at the same time. It's really interesting. This last week, I was backpacking for my 47th birthday out on the Point Reyes National Seashore. And I had not been backpacking in like 25 years. And I went when did I go? I went 2 decades ago more than 2 decades ago, because I'll be married 21 years next week. So 2 decades plus, like with a boyfriend for 2 nights or something. I was like, oh, backpacking. And then I didn't go again until I was like 45 years old with my Bitch and Wine group, actually. And now that we're all vaccinated and we were outdoors and we were able to sort of stay apart and sleep in our own tents and all that, we went on a backpacking trip, and it was completely 100% amazing. 100% off the grid. We had hit one of those weekends in the North Coast in California where, it could go either way. It could be 50 degrees and fog wind that will just basically peel your face skin right off.
Right. Or
it's going to be 70 and beautiful. And we hit a 70 and beautiful weekend. It was like one of those wildly magical moments. And we stayed where we landed on our hike. We stayed in the same site for 2 nights. We were in the middle of this mustard field. So in California, we have a mustard bloom that doesn't last very, very long. But the mustard was probably in some parts of this big meadow were like 6 feet tall. It's crazy.
Wow.
So it felt like this I felt like we were just like camping with the gnomies, It was just really wonderful and magical that way.
It was like a magical fairyland.
Totally. And, I'm really noticing after this last year of COVID, how important it is for me to be outside and actually like look around. When we went for spring break, we took the kids not backpacking. We took the kids camping. We have folks will maybe hear me talk about this. I love trailer camping. Yes, I do. So we have a trailer. We pull with a big truck, and we went out into the desert for a week and a half. And we were at one site in the middle of the desert on private land that we had booked through Hip Camp. Shout out to Hip Camp. And it was the night was so black, the stars were so bright, and it was for the first time, I feel like, in the whole last year where I looked up. Mm-hmm. Like actually like stopped and looked up and just really got present with, I'm right here. And like I let myself gaze for a minute,
Yeah.
This whole last year has been so like, what are we doing? What's happening next? What's the plan? How do we strategically, for those of you listening who might have a career, that's been true in your workplaces, it's been true in small businesses like mine. It has been, really hard, and staying focused and on task is the way for me to sort of survive that. And, having a chance to look up and then right after that go backpacking and have a chance to like lay in the grass and gaze at the mustard is like really critical.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
So on our backpacking trip this weekend, it was really interesting. On our hike, I think it was our hike out, one of my girlfriends, we were talking about work and career stuff and goals and, as you do. And just the rhythm of our lives. And she said, like, well, you work a lot, don't you, Dia? Like, you work a lot, right? Like, it's just a given that I work all the time.
Right.
And it just got me thinking about how we work. And, I don't work all the time. I work, to be really honest, I don't even get to my office till 10 o'clock. I wake up in the morning. I have an hour of quiet time in the morning with coffee. I go into my garage. I do a workout, or I take the dog for a walk, a long hill walk. And I don't leave my house till 9:15 to get to my office. I have a private office about, a couple miles from my home. Until 9:15, 9:30. I try not to book meetings before 10 o'clock in the morning. I am actually a morning person, but that is my time. And I kick off, at 4:30 or 5. Am I wildly productive during those hours? Absolutely. But I don't live a life where my work doesn't consume it in the way that I think it's easy to assume it does when you look at it from the outside. And I just want to I don't know, we there's a lot of chat about like busy culture. Oh, I'm so busy all the time. I don't have any time. And, I have said I'm not busy, I'm super engaged. And when I say no to something, it's not always because I can't make it or because I'm super booked. It's because I hold back the waters so I have spaciousness on either side of my day. And when I think about the way that I work, it's really in leverage points. I see all my work as a series of like deadlines or a series of strike points or leverage points where we, launch something, or I step on a stage, or, we have a concentrated set of work and then some relief. So it's like more like this accordion kind of rhythm and less like a marathon where it's 10 hours a day, every day, 5-6 days a week. And, I wonder if folks... An old mentor of mine said, it's really nice to understand, do you work in leverage points or do you work in layers? Are you someone who lays down layer on top of layer to build something you're building? Or are you somebody that looks at something and sees it as a series of leverage points? And I work in a way that is a series of leverage points, and that helps me because it helps me manage my time in a way that it's like going into finals, and when you were in university, like going into finals, you plan for it, and so that I'm not trying to do all things all the time. So it was just interesting to think that it's easy for us to look at each other's lives and assume that we might be working all the time, or when we say we're really busy, that means, we're completely compressed. Everything is wall to wall. And for me, I just wanted to tell the truth and say, it's not true for me. And if it's not true for you, that's cool. You don't have to be hyper compressed and busy to be legit,
I think there's a lot of people that think the opposite way.
It's all over the map. I mean, I have a client right now who, he does, his work is all consuming. He's the founder of a startup that is in full-on build mode. He has given his life over to this project in a way that I can't do in my life. And I don't not respect it. It's just that's not how I can run my life and hold on to, a sense that I have a life and that, to be in relationship with my life outside of any one activity.
Right. But I think that I understand how some people would look at you and think that you might be the type of person that's working 50, 60 hours a week just because you're so accomplished and productive.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, Arthur, so much for saying that. I mean, there have been moments in my life. I remember I worked on an Olympic bid a handful of years ago. I flew halfway around the world. It was 3 weeks of me being on site. And in that case, everyone in my life, my friends and my family knew that I was not only in an opposite time zone from them, but I was on set for that project whenever the producers and the team needed me. I was on call, basically I'd said, yes, I am working and here doing the thing 24 hours a day for 3 weeks. And then I scheduled in recovery time when I got home.
Right.
So this is what I mean, where like I have these like leverage points where I dig in but the days that when we're in between those big leverage points, those sort of lulls, I'm really invested in making sure that there's some spaciousness there.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I have a much more sporadic kind of schedule because I freelance in a bunch of different things, but especially this last year, there hasn't been as much work. And so I always just know that even if I'm going hard on a project for like a month, some big video thing with lots and lots of videos, and I'm producing, directing, writing, and editing, I know that I'll have a month after that with kind of no work.
Yep.
So I know that it's already built in. So I'm fine with going hard for, 3 weeks. And then just because I know that I might not have any work.
It's easy.
After.
I have to battle a little bit of the like feeling bad or kind of guilty. Like, I'm just sitting in my courtyard at 9 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday looking at the fish pond,
Right.
But recognizing also that because I work in leverage points, I have to kind of go into these caves between larger projects where I can use that to kind of recharge so that when I do have to step on stage or when I do have a moment where it's heads down, I've got it. I have a full tank.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of what was on my mind this last week, especially because right now we're kind of in a lull. We're between having completed a bunch of work around some strategic projects with large brands for communications work, and between another set of a few sets of some goals in my business and another set of inquiries and proposals that are out sort of cooking. And so I have to notice that, this is that. We're in that cradle time, and I need to use that to reconnect with my own sense of self and life so that when I'm heads down again, I'm coming with a full tank.
Today, we had a really nice shout out about the show on Apple Podcasts from Maya T. She said, Dia is jam-packed full of knowledge for women who want to level up. She's personally changed the course of my life and continues to inspire and coach me. Love that she's reaching so many more people via the podcast.
This is so lovely to hear this. And I think I know who this is. And what's interesting about this is that, yes, she and I had a conversation about a really critical moment in her career and her life. I don't know, probably over a year ago, if this is who I think it is. And it's really interesting to see since this podcast launched, this show up here, because I didn't know that that's the kind of impact we had. I mean, it's my intention to have that kind of impact, but this is like perfect evidence that you could have one conversation with a colleague, you could have one mentoring conversation, you could give one piece of advice or, make one introduction to someone in your life and in your network and make a huge difference that you don't even know about. We never know what kind of impact we're having. Well, we might suspect, but we don't always really know. So this is really beautiful, and thank you for that, Maya T.
If the podcast is having an impact on you, there's a lot of things you can do. You can subscribe, you can rate and review, and that helps the Dia Bondi Show reach more people. If you had a question or something for Dia, you can call us at 341-333-2997 and leave a message, and we might answer your question on a future podcast.
Cool. So let's talk about what we're doing today, Arthur.
Yes, we have a guest today.
We do. We have with us Maira Benjamin, and I'm super excited to have her because if you've been listening to the show all 9 or 11 episodes before this one's released, you'll know that Maira Benjamin was really instrumental in in what is now the form of Project Ask Like an Auctioneer, which is my project to help a million women ask for more and get it. She was so instrumental in how I saw what this project could really impact. And we'll talk about that in our interview with her. She's been dedicated to the technology sector for over 2 decades, playing instrumental roles in engineering organizations for over 10 different technology companies, which I think is really interesting because think about it. Think about how many changes and decisions she's had to make. 2 decades, 10 technology companies. That's a pretty strong ratio of like years to different jobs and roles. So I love that about her. Currently, she is Senior Director of Engineering at change.org. change.org. Many of you may be familiar with that platform. And I met her at Pandora when she was director of engineering there. She's managed many different teams over the years, such as computational programming, recommendations platforms, search, music tools, content operations, and growth and retention. And she's currently building teams responsible for organizer empowerment at change.org and the communications and integrity teams. She's a published author, a lyricist, which I love. She's a classically trained pianist. She's a mother of a biochemical engineering doctoral student. Big shout out to her, and an avid knitter. And I love that we know this about her. When I saw her give when she was hosting the event that I spoke at with her for the first time, she was wearing a knitted Wonder Woman shawl that she made herself. I just have seen that in action. Her exposure to music and the arts, she says, really informs her thought process regarding software development and management, both. And we're going to talk about that in our conversation with her. She's a Bachelor of Arts in Statistics from UC Berkeley and a Master's of Arts in Liberal Studies from Mills College in Oakland. And notice she has a technology career, even though she came from that educational platform. So really interesting. She's founder of the Technical Intersection Conference, a conference for women of color in tech, and she believes fervently in enabling people worldwide to promote the change that they want to see in their own communities.
Badass.
Maira, I'm so stoked. I'm just going to say the word stoked. I'm so stoked to have you here because I've been telling my professional community the story that I'm about to tell right now for like 2 years, and I don't know that I've ever cycled it back to you. But I'm so happy to have you here because you were instrumental in shaping sort of the not the final form, but sort of the mature form of my wild project called Project Ask Like an Auctioneer. I remember, so the first opportunity I had to stand in front of a room and tell the full story of what it means to ask like an auctioneer was at Pandora's Women in Tech Summit, which you invited me through a mutual connection to come give on stage there. And we met beforehand, and we sat down at Pandora Kitchen, and we were talking just about life and work and career stuff and about Project Ask Like an Auctioneer and what it was. And I remember saying, like, look, I don't know that this is right for internal teams. Because when I originally thought about how to use the mental model of auctioneering to help women ask for more and get it, I was really thinking about like independent professionals, freelancers, women in small business, experts, and only about dollars, because auctioneering is about the money, is like, how do we put more money in the hands of women so they can have more impact, they can have more success, they can resource their dreams, they can, money is power. And you were like, girl, you are
exactly, girl.
You were like, you are missing it if you don't recognize the thousands of asks that we have to make over the courses of our careers, whether you're in-house or out of house. And you're missing a whole impact opportunity if you don't recognize that and apply that in that area. And it just cracked my head open, and I was like, yes. And since then, that's proven to be true. We've been, we've brought the workshop and the keynote, which is now two separate experiences, to, Alphabet's X team, Dropbox, Facebook, Latinas in Tech a few times, professional associations like Women of Color Advancing Peace and Security, or WCAPS. And it's true that I'm going to stop talking soon, I promise. It's true that so many of the asks that these women are bringing to the table when we talk about how to strategically use asking and how to ask for more when you go to make the asks that matter are not just about money, and particularly in-house where comp review is like really rigid and you're in salary bands that are established. There are a million other ways for you to advance your career that aren't just about, focusing on money. So I'm curious. So hello, and curious, what are your thoughts about that since we had that conversation?
I actually do reflect on that conversation a lot. And I've also told people about you and what happened. And people have been curious about it. And I've really, at this point, have moved that model into my operating manual, so to speak, with other people and other women. And I boldly tell them, just ask. And I say, what's the worst that can happen? And usually they come back and say, I don't know, I'm scared or whatever. And then I say, the worst that can happen is that they say no, and you're back in the same situation that you were before. And after that blows up their mind a little bit, they move forward. And women have come back to me and said, yeah, that was the thing that got me past my fear.
I find a lot of folks that come across, that end up in my workshops and keynotes, beyond the sort of ordained, negotiation moments you think about comp, salary, promotion when they're in-house, they sort of get like, well, I want to ask for more and I want to use asking as a success strategy. What would I even ask for? And it's turned out, Maira, in the 2 years and the hundreds of conversations I've had, that the asks that I'm hearing women make fall into 4 categories. And folks who are listening, if you've heard me talk about this before, it is money, whether it's, raising the rates on your proposal if you're not an in-house professional, or it is about salary comp, la, la, la. It's also about influence. And I think you pointed to this, the third one actually in our conversation, influence around, expanding network, meeting people that can help advance you, getting on stages, speaking at your all hands for the very first time in your career, around visibility. And then the third one is around, I think of like as authority, which you said to me in those early conversations that, it's not just promotion authority, but it's like ownership around decisions.
Yes, exactly. It's all that and more. Sparkles.
Yes, exactly. And then the fourth one is about balance, like bringing into alignment what we're doing in our careers with who we actually are. And that sometimes, in-house, we have to, in-house and out of house, we're having to make asks that help us course correct. Like, oh, I tried this thing and it's not quite me. And I got to find my way back to the marketing group, or I got to find my way back to being an independent professional, or we got to find, we got to pivot a little bit so that we're keeping in balance who we are and what we're doing.
Exactly. Yes. This is all important. And I was so thrilled when you move forward with everything, and glad to, reconnect with you again in the 2 years or more that we have met.
I know. It's so interesting. 2 years goes like that now that I'm as old as I am. It's kind of crazy. So I'm super curious. One thing I've noticed since doing this work is, and in the 20 years as a leadership communications coach, this didn't come up as much because the lens that I was looking at storytelling around didn't include sort of, it just wasn't this, it's just not an exact overlap, is that goals are pretty loaded for folks. I mean, there's so much goal shame. We think we have the wrong goals. We get crappy feedback about the goals we do have. I had one woman in a workshop tell me that her manager told her she had the right goal, but the wrong reason for having it. Excuse me.
No.
Yeah. Oh no, don't do that.
We're actually going through a situation here at work where we're trying to do the OKR process, objectives and key results. And of course, we're going through it and there was no training. and we pointed this out, and they backtracked and said, oh yeah, that's right, we need some training. And so what happened was people were setting these very ambitious goals and then feeling bad when they didn't reach them. And whereas I was really chill about it, and I said, hey, it's just a guidepost, don't get really worked over on it. But, people look at a goal and they feel like they have to attain it, and they don't, they fail.
Yes. And how's your relationship? Like, what is your relationship with goals in your own career and life? And, what do they look like, and how have they changed over the years?
Yeah, so I have a really simple formula. I know how everybody at the beginning of the year starts with the New Year's resolutions, and they have this whole huge list of things. You know what? I do one thing. I just have one goal every year. And I know it sounds boring, but it has opened doors for me. And my goal every year is learn something new. That's it. And wherever it takes me is the journey. And so I am actually able to complete my goal every year. And most of the time I end up learning more than one thing. But setting that goal of I'm going to learn something new for the year has guided my career for a long time now.
And how, when you think about something new, do you set what it is, or do you just get curious and go, what is it? Let it show itself to me. Like, what is the thing I'm going to learn? Or do you say, this year I'm going to blah, 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 learn this?
I actually, what I do at the beginning of the year is I open up myself to, I'm going to learn something new. I don't know what it is. It's going to reveal itself, right? But once it reveals itself, then I become more specific about it. So certain years are, I've suddenly it's revealed that I need to learn a new programming language for whatever reason it is. And then I go after it. Then I become very specific. I need to learn this programming language by month X or by this time or whatever. And then that's how I pursue this. And it's really strange, but it's helped me so much and let go of this goal anxiety that people have.
I love this. And so I hear it sort of like a 2-hit punch where you set the intention, create openness and curiosity, then identify it, and then go for it. So that's actually 4 steps, but 2 in that, like, there's the the opening to it and then the seeing it, what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when did that happen for you? When did you figure out that, like, oh, this is the way I do goals?
I think it happened for me when I had my daughter. And now she's going to be, I'm very proud to announce this, she's going to defend her thesis in biochemical engineering in June. So I'm going to actually travel to see her do this. So this is big.
Really
but
big.
When I had her, I had this list of things. I got to do this. I got to do that. And then it started breaking down pretty much the first year she was born, because it was just too much stuff. When you're a new parent, there's all these things and these goals and these aspirations. And I just had to learn to let go of it. In her second year, it was, well, this is a journey, let's open ourselves up to, what it is that you want, that she wants to learn and that I learn in the process. So, the second year she started, and then first year she started walking. And then I learned that I needed to childproof my house,
yeah,
things of that nature. And so if I treat the goal as a journey, it becomes a method for opening myself up to all kinds of opportunities.
That's beautiful. And along that journey, what was a big ask you made in your life or career, and like what happened and what was the impact?
There have been actually 2 big asks. The first big ask was I basically came to my manager and said, you need to promote me.
Is that an ask or a command? I love that. It was
almost a command, but I did ask. I said, I think you need to promote me. I've been doing this work, and that was it. And he actually surprised me and said, yeah, I've been thinking about it for a while. And then at that point, I made the real ask is, well, stop thinking about it, do it.
Beautiful. That's really interesting, because I think sometimes we don't surface the things we want because we're not sure the world is ready, but we don't know what they're thinking. We don't know where they are. So surfacing a desire, surfacing an ask, surfacing, letting, I talk a lot about like letting your dreams be known by the people around you can create intersections that if you don't surface them, they can't happen. Those intersections between that current thinking of the person you're talking to and what you want yourself.
Yes, exactly. And that really opened up my eyes because I had never done that before.
And when was that in your career?
Oh my gosh, it was 5-6 years ago. I just asked to be a director. I've always had that goal in my mind. And at that point I said, if I don't do it, it's not going to happen. And so now I approach everything the same way.
in that, if you don't ask, you don't get?
Yeah, exactly.
So you grew up here in the Bay Area where we're recording this, in fact, in East Oakland, and sleuthing around the internet a little bit, I learned that you are a first-gen American and that, in your family and family's legacy, you are the first at a lot of things.
Yes, I am.
So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I am, as you mentioned, a first-generation American. And my parents came here from Dominican Republic, and they did not have a chance to graduate from high school where they were. So as a result, I was the first person in the family to graduate from high school. And then I followed that with graduating from college, getting a bachelor's degree, and then followed that with a master's degree. And also the first person in my family to actually start earning more than my parents. So that was a whole paradigm shift, and the first person in my family to be stepping into a new kind of tech world, a new profession. Um, my mom was, she's a blue collar worker and she's a seamstress, and my father was a merchant marine. And so they were very totally in the middle class, and actually more lower middle class because we were in East Oakland. And so, yeah, it's just been a journey for me of so many firsts. And also the first person in my family to speak English, and had to teach my brothers and my parents as a consequence of that action as well.
So when you say you were the first to earn more than your parents and that was a paradigm shift, for whom was that a paradigm shift? For you or for them or for the whole system?
For me, more than them, because although I've always had my intention to get out of East Oakland due to the environment, I didn't have an idea of what that would look like. And so once again, opening myself up to what does that look like? And I figured out that would look like getting a degree. And that was something that my parents never had a chance to do. And so they didn't know how to guide me or counsel me through that whole process. The whole college admissions process and being on campus, and how do you handle all that? I had to work my way through school because we were not well off, and scholarships weren't exactly available, but I did get a few, just not enough to cover everything.
So who were your stewards during that time?
So there was a program on campus that encouraged students of color to stay in school and provide guidance and counseling and so forth. So I leaned into them for moments for when I was questioning myself as to whether or not I'm going to actually make it through this thing. I had friends, and of course, my family was supportive as well.
When did you pick up music? I'm curious.
Oh my gosh, I picked that up earlier. I think it was in elementary school. It's late for people, unfortunately. Usually the great musicians start when they barely talk. I started when I was probably around 6th grade or so, but picked it up really quickly. And that continues to be a love of mine.
Yeah, you've said that your music and arts relationship with music and arts informs how you manage and your engineering career. So I love this idea of this bringing an outside discipline into another discipline in order to create a framework for your own leadership, or that shows up a lot in the hundreds and hundreds of coaching conversations I've had with my communications clients, that a lot of very accomplished, high-impact leaders that I've worked with bring something from the outside and apply it to their discipline. And there's almost sometimes a little, not shame, but like a little secrecy about that. Well, actually, how I do this other thing is using something from way over here, but don't tell any because it's not legit, But talk to me about how is it that you've used music and art and applied it to management and engineering?
Yeah, so as a musician, you learn how to be disciplined and breaking things like pieces of music down and practicing it until you get to the next section that you may have difficulties with. That's not unlike the same way software engineering is. You have a problem and you want to break it down and you work on it, and then you move on to the next piece. And the other point of art and music and all my liberal studies background as well is that there is a mode of communication that is used in liberal studies. With all my studies, I had to learn how to write really well, communicate those thoughts and ideas, and question as well. And so all of these things are aspects that I bring into my management, where I lean on clear communication, where I like to express myself through a written medium and making sure people understand, and where I engage with engineers and managers on breaking down information and also projects into digestible chunks of pieces that they can deliver on, and then work on that delivery aspect. So it's
I
all related.
I love that you're like naming it and claiming it as a leadership tool. And I think, for folks who are listening, look around. If you take a 360 view of your life, hobbies, ways of working, ways of playing, and let ourselves name and claim something outside of our professional discipline and see how it can help accelerate or make sense of our professional world. And sometimes it can be a real signature, not just skill, but a signature way of moving in the world that helps us be successful, even though it comes from outside of that particular discipline. I think, yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. So you also are a major champion for diversity, inclusion, representation, and really, I understand very specifically, a champion of helping Black women and women of color in STEM and software. Is there a thing that happened, or when did that start for you? And was there a sort of an instigating moment where you were like, I'm not just going to participate in this, I'm actually going to be an active voice in it over the course of your career?
Yeah, so as I started my career in tech, I did notice I was usually the only woman or person of color on all male teams. And I was okay with it for a while because I actually have brothers. And so I'm used to that environment where I'm the only girl and so forth. But I think it was halfway through when I started switching into management that I started thinking this can't be the paradigm or the future world that I want to be in, where I continue to be the only person that looks like me in a team. And so from that point on, at every company I've been at, I've started community groups. I've worked on initiatives for hirings to make sure that we have representation and so forth. But particularly at Pandora, it really came to a fine point where I had gained enough skills to understand how to organize, how to understand how to create these communities, how to champion them and advocate on behalf of them, and also to lean on budget and making sure that it's funded and so forth. And then the last piece of all of this was thinking that, there isn't really a conference out there for women of color. We need a conference that just kind of takes that in and creates that. And so I said, following the paradigm of not asking for permission, just go ahead and create it. And we had been running this for 3 years, but we, hiccuped with the pandemic.
Sure.
And unfortunately with Mills, I think dissolving in a way, we may not be able to recreate that. So hopefully I can get back to that again in the future.
Yeah, for folks who are listening and don't know that, we mentioned in your intro, Maira, that you're a graduate of Mills College, which has a huge, initiative around equity inclusion. And it is a old college that is closing and turning into an institute. And so that was where you were hosting that conference. And so things are changing.
Yes, definitely. It's a little sad, but hopefully we can get the baton going again.
Well, it's not surprising to me that you're now at change.org, Maira. I can tell you that when I saw that you made that transition, I was like, oh, of course. So good.
Yeah, because this is also leading into my vision of what my future self is. And that is, I want to make sure that I'm actually making the real commitment towards change in the world. And so when this opportunity opened up, I took it. So I want to fulfill my intention around this and not, just say, yeah, one day, someday, soon, whatever. Just, grab the opportunity when it comes to you.
And what is your advice for folks who are the marginalized ones?
To approach people that look like you, that are in the positions that you want to see yourself in. And you may be surprised that they will reach out back to you and provide that helping hand. I've told people, don't be afraid to ask, of course, for the help that you need. And you will be surprised that people will, in turn, help you.
Maira, it's been so lovely to talk to you. I'm so thrilled to connect with you this way and to just know that, like, I have you in my, like, you're part of my gravity. You're like, I don't know if I'm like orbiting you or if you're orbiting me, or it's just sort of like, you're in my sphere.
We are a binary star system.
There you go. Perfect. Okay, that was great.
Yeah, she's amazing.
She really is. I was just really noticing, like, she's got like a gentleness about her that is about a focus that is just really lovely. I love encountering leaders that are that sort of go against our assumptions about what, like, senior, executive types are supposed to be like. And I just hear a lot in my work around, like, oh, well, they're just executives, so that's how they are, from certain ranks. I'm going to call them ranks in an organization. I'm like, no. In my 20 years as a leadership communications coach, like, people are not always what you think. Like, make room for all types at all levels.
Yeah. I mean, and that sort of ties into, what we were talking about in the interview about what she's trying to do.
I just love it. And I think it's so the big thing that stands out for me is just how she was so clearly able to take her music education and how you learn and be masterful in music and apply it directly to how to learn and be masterful around a particular engineering project. Like, it's such an interesting one-to-one of two unrelated territories.
Yeah. And I kind of think that there's another aspect to it as well, where when you're spending all this time doing something that's in a more creative field and part of your brain, that just helps you be more creative in your field. I mean, I've worked with a lot of producers, video producers who say, oh, I'm not a creative, I'm just a producer. This is what I do. I make schedules and all this stuff. And it's like, as a person who does a lot of creative things like directing and recording music and stuff, that helps me when I'm producing, So I understand what we're making, and the best way to make it is super important to me as just a producer. So
yes, so good. I mean, I think, a lot of, I don't know what, like, I can't remember anything these days, but I was reading a book recently. If I can think of it, I'll add it to the show notes. But they were talking about that having an approach to something is really, really key. Not knowing, there's not like a right way always to tackle something, but if you have a way to approach a problem, no matter where you draw that approach from, you can actually elevate your sort of win rate if you're better at designing approaches to solving a problem, again, even if they're outside of a particular discipline. So I think we all can draw on our whole buffet of not just skills, but ways of approaching problems and apply them to each other in this sort of interdisciplinary way. And we can unlock a lot for ourselves if we let ourselves do it. If we don't say immediately, oh, that's the wrong way to approach it or right way to approach it. It's like if we can explore different approaches and actually see what the impact and outcome is, and then name it and claim it, great, instead of decide before we even dig in that it's not the right approach.
Yeah, I was going to say name it and claim it, say yes to yourself, all the stuff from the previous
all
episodes.
The things,
yeah.
That's
yeah.
Funny. So loved having Maira. For those of you who are listening, you can find her on LinkedIn. We will add her LinkedIn to the show notes, and we're going to see you on the flip side.
That's right. See you later. Bye.
The Dia Bondi Show is a production of Dia Bondi Communications and is produced by Baby A. Please like, share, rate, and subscribe at Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your favorite podcast. Do you have a question for Dia about an important ask in your life? Give us a call at 341-333-2997, and maybe you'll hear your question answered on a future episode.